right, everybody, let's get started. Who will our winners be?
I think it's to go back.
Yeah, for sure.
If anybody wants to bet, even though it's illegal in Texas to bet on things like this, like, so I'm not advocating that, start your bets now.
There will be two winners.
There will be two winners, and I will invite you guys up to the front, and you get to fight Thunderdome style over which person gets which book. So, again, the books are the book of CSS 3, which I know nothing about, and the Ruby Wizardry book, which is an instructional guide for children, but everybody's a child, right, inside. So, you know, if you want to.
Always the internet.
Oh, no.
The internet is down. No.
Oh.
Okay, it's a cool place to work.
Broke it.
All right, we're going to my tethering, and I really hope that that form data is still in there.
I was going to say, when you hit back, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Is it down for everybody in here? Okay, good.
We'll just fill out Rappler on your phone.
This is really interesting that I'm still airplayed, which requires Wi-Fi, and I'm not on Wi-Fi.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. That's magic. Ah.
Sweet.
All right, wait. Oh, what are you doing?
I've just got a new tab open. It's cool.
Does anybody here know how to use a computer?
What the heck? I thought we were tethering.
All right. All right, cool. You turn it off and you turn it back on again, and it works like every time. This is DevOps.
No, man, DevOps, you write a script to turn it off and back on.
I'm going to copy this into the clipboard too, just in case. All right, let's do this.
Fancy.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
So you're telling me you turned the Wi-Fi off and you were still on the video?
Yeah. Oh, there's music too. Yeah.
I don't see my name up there, man. What's the deal?
You went through twice, man. Dude, this is crazy, man. We got disconnected again.
Okay.
All right, one more time, and then no, I'm just gonna take the books home. Yeah.
I don't like where this is going.
Does anybody have a hat and some pieces of paper?
Check that out. I saved all your stuff.
Oh, you're so awesome.
Yeah. Two. Let's just do 100 seconds here, or 100 milliseconds, make it fast. All right, go.
It's not looking good.
Let's go.
So,
That unicorn's time on
it's too many names. Oh, there we go.
Yes.
There we go.
Don't disconnect. Scott Hamilton and Marcus Simpson. Scott picks first. Okay, Scott picks first. Are you sure you guys don't want to fight it out or whatever? So, we got Ruby Wizardry and the book of CSS 3.
Oh, CSS 3, I love the fun so much.
Do you have kids? Do you know kids?
Yeah. Are you a big kid?
They'll want that book.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I want it.
It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Yeah, round of applause.
Round of applause. So we got our next speaker coming up, Steve Madere. He's going to talk about Hobo, and I know nothing about it, so I'm really excited to hear about it.
All right.
Let's give it up for Steve.
So let's see, first of all, if it's even possible for me to get
Because,
connected.
I have Yosemite and it just Do you want the mic or you just a screen? Just set it up here and then I'll see what happens. Alrighty, I'm Steve. Let's get the screen working. We can get on to the fun. Okay, so this thing is called, it's code working, right?
Yep. And apparently when you connect to it, the internet just completely goes away. For me.
Only for you.
Only for me. Yeah.
He's a maverick.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure why I did this. It seems to have scaled everything on my monitor down quite a bit. So.
210. Yeah.
Okay. Towards this, and then text. Okay. So who is this dork standing here before you today? I'm Steve Adair. I've been involved in one way or another in the Austin tech scene for a really freaking long time. Probably some of you were barely born when I started working here. I started an internet company in 1995, and that was built on a scripting language that, it was one of the earlier big projects that was running on scripting language. And so when Ruby on Rails came out in 2000s, I just totally got all over it, and I love it. I've been working in Rails pretty regularly since 2008. And I recently encountered somebody who had sort of heard through the grapevine. I was talking to him about a consulting engagement. And I heard through the grapevine that, oh yeah, with Ruby on Rails, you can build a complete app in about a week. And so there I was, faced with a client whose expectations were that I was going to build a complete app in about a week. And so I immediately went out and started doing some research into where on earth did he hear this? Because you can get some scaffolding up and you can get something that's really kind of annoying, frankly, in a day or a few minutes. But to get a real complete working app usually takes a lot longer. So I started looking into Active Scaffold, which I had heard about before, and I thought, well, I'll put up an admin interface using Active Scaffold, and that will satisfy him for a little while I build a real app. And while I was investigating Active Scaffold, I saw, on their webpage, they're kind enough to list all of the competing projects that are kind of in a similar space. And I went and investigated every one of them, and I found this total, it's a gem, I guess. Anyway, it was hidden in plain sight. How many of you guys have heard of Hobo? either of you actually used it, or you just kind of heard of it? Okay, a little bit. It's actually not very widely used, but it is amazingly capable. So I started doing a little bit more research. So you guys haven't heard of Hobo, so let me Google that for you. Okay. Looking at our first link, excellent. We have some great fashion accessories. Second link to, okay, all right. I think we're onto something finally now. Now, this is getting a little bit warmer because it's actually about code, except for it's the Hobo code, which is apparently like a code of ethics. Finally, I found the Holy Grail, the actual Hobo itself, which, by the way, if you guys ever want to find it, just search for Hobo and Rails in the same search instead of Hobo by itself. Oddly enough, at least a few of the hits are still about people like riding trains. When you search for Hobo and Rails. Okay, so why was I so excited to find Hobo? Well, here at hobocentral.net, there is this really great screencast that I'm not going to play the whole stupid thing for you, but I highly recommend it. It is riveting. I give it 2 thumbs up, and I laughed, I cried, and I think it's actually going to get an Academy Award next year. It's been a real sleeper since then. The benefits from using Hobo, now that I've actually, this is about a little over 6 months ago that I first discovered it, and I investigated it for a couple of weeks before starting to apply it to my clients' problems, and it is just fantastic. Unlike all of the other rapid code generating things, such as Rails G scaffold or Active Scaffold, it does not paint you into a corner, and it does not generate a bunch of really crappy code that you're going to spend most of your time deleting. It does extremely rapid prototyping. It has built into it, and one of the things that makes it fast is it has this standard user model and access control built in right from the ground up. And the minute you create an app using the Hobo library, you've got a way to log in, and you've got access control over all of the models. It can instantly generate a pretty darn good CRUD GUI. You can then customize it from there to make it into whatever you want. You're not just stuck with the standard view, which is kind of what you get if you use Active Scaffold. Now these other advantages are kind of, they were unexpected, pleasant surprises. So it has this great library of powerful input and display tags. And what do I mean by powerful input and display tags? What the heck can that mean? Well, Hobo has this great library called DryML that is effectively extending HTML. And you can further extend HTML. It's like having web components on the server side. So you can define new HTML tags and then use them. And those HTML tags immediately invoke your Ruby code. Obviously not in the browser. It all happens on the server side before it gets sent out. But you'll see a little bit further along in this when you see specific examples. This can be incredibly powerful and really keep your code cleanly organized and keep the view stuff separate from the model set. Very effective. The other thing that comes with right out of the box is it has word search and autocomplete support across all your models, all your controllers, and that's right into your models. So it's a really quick way to make really slick interfaces too. Okay, where you can do autocomplete fields, looking things up, or trying to look them up by autocomplete, and if you don't find it immediately pop up a form to create one. Okay. Other really nice benefits that you usually don't get from things that generate functionality for you is that it actually improves the structure and maintainability of your whole project. If you use Hobo and you bother to stick to their conventions, you write drastically fewer lines of code, so there's less to maintain and support. And it automatically leads you into writing very thin controllers, which I think is pretty universally accepted that we should be striving for that, to put our business logic in our models and have the controllers do as little as possible. So what Hobo does is they provide for you automatic functionality that all controllers should have, easy ways to customize it with very few lines of code. And so your controllers end up being like, most of them are like 4 or 5 lines of code. And then where you customize it, you might add another 20. And it's really lightweight. And the other nice thing about it is that it implements access control in the models as business logic, instead of mixing it into your controllers. The controllers have a standardized way of querying the model about the access, about who should have access to the different parts of your application. And then the controller just has a very standardized way of responding to that behaviorally. So you might be wondering, you know, how do they do all this magic? It's like, the first thing that they do is they add some extensions to the model. You just, at the top of the model, call Hobo model, and all of a sudden your model has all these new capabilities. You can define your database schema in your model code itself, and then Hobo will auto-generate all of the migrations to actually create the corresponding database structure. If you change your model code, and then you run Hobo G migration, it rummages through all your models, compares it to the database state, and generates new migrations to bring it in sync. It is awesome. Not having to go and look at your database schema to figure out what your models do, and also not having to constantly, you know, if I change something here, I got to change it there, and so forth. You can actually put relationships into, you know, active record associations, relationships, in your model, and Hobo recognizes that you haven't got the keys, you know, the foreign keys in the other table, and when it generates the next migration, we'll add the foreign key for you. So it dries things up in many different ways. And then finally, on the model extensions, you can define custom data types. Like, most of us, I'm assuming by now, have done like a Rails G migration, or sorry, a Rails G scaffold, and specified a list of field names and data types. And they're like 6 or 7 data types you get to work with, and that's it. But with Hobo, you can define new data types at will, and all you have to do is in the class where you're defining that new data type, you specify what database data type is stored as, right? But when you create a field of that type in your model, it has different behavior. And I'll show you some specific examples of that. One that's pretty easy to get to wrap your head around, though, is the password type. The password data type gets stored as a string, but it has special behavior in your model, and then it gets encrypted when it comes in and gets set in clear text, but then gets encrypted before it gets stored. And that's all handled by behavior in the data type. And all you have to do is say that your field is a type password and it has all the behavior. It's also got these great controller extensions, like I mentioned before. It's just a few lines of code in a standard controller in Hobo. It gets you all the standard CRUD actions. And I'll show you an example of that in just a couple of minutes. I'm not kidding, the standard one is 3 lines of code, and it'll make all your standard actions the same ones that would have been generated by Rails G scaffold, but would have generated like 80 lines of crufty junk. And these controller extensions, the controller is still really easy to customize, and I'll show you how we're going to do that in a little bit. And finally, there is the amazing DryML, which I mentioned before, as a way to define your own new kinds of HTML-like tags that execute Ruby code to get something done. And because DryML can react to the type of data it's acting on, you basically subclass tags according to the kind of data that's being used in the tag, which is, I know, a weird thing to hear, but when you see it in action, you will go, wow, I wish I would have had this before. Okay. So, without further ado, I will actually get on to building an application. I wanted to build a really rich, complicated app, and I thought, I only have like an hour to talk. So I'm going to stick to the simple, one of the standard examples that everybody's familiar with, which is the classified website, classified ads website. Oh my God, these are 20. Okay. So the data structure of our classified ad website looks like this. Classified data model. I have now gotten into the habit of always describing my projects in this way before I begin coding on them, if I can. I look at all the functionality that's expected and then make myself a nice breakdown of the data model in which I describe each model and then the fields within and any relationships. So this right here is enough information that you can actually generate all of your model code, as well as your database schema. It's at least enough information. What we have here at the top, let's see if I can, it's kind of washed out in it. Maybe I should pick a different color scheme. Let's just try highlighting, see if that's more obvious. Okay. So our user model has the standard name, email address, and then the phone number to contact the person who's doing the posting, right? And then I've actually put into here the relationships from associations. The postings field just has many postings, right? And a posting, this is where you're going to post a classified ad with a name, a body, a price. It goes into some category, and then it has several properties. And this allows us to do stuff like, properties like it's used or it's like new, stuff like that. I've included this in this demonstration mostly just so I can show how to do the has and belongs to many, right? Category, simple enough. It's just a name. Same thing with property. And I should have actually specified here. Well, okay. This relationship about properties is, it implies the existence of the posting properties model, which is just a join table. Can you guys see that? It's because anytime you do a has many through, you're always going through a join table, okay?
It's pretty good.
Okay, let's try this. Is that better? Okay, I can go bigger. And finally, just to sort of show off, I decided to do attached photos. So we're actually going to build this app from scratch in the next 10 minutes using Hobo. And it's going to have attached photos and all these relationships, and it'll actually have a reasonable user interface for manipulating. Okay, but first, a little digression into how much scaffolding sucks. So, the first thing I'm going to do is generate an app with the same structure using the regular Rails G scaffold, right? So we have this script that'll do this, build with Rails G scaffold. Okay. The standard commands are going to generate a scaffold for user, generate a scaffold for posting, for category, property, and so forth, right? And then I have this special script that I've written called patch models, because I don't like to sit around editing all my models to put, the has many on the one side and the belongs to on the other side. It's a pretty standard pattern. So I just made this script called patch models that does it for me. This script is actually going to be released very soon as part of my Hobo Turbo gem. So in addition to patch models, there's this other script that reads that schema that I showed you a little bit earlier and generates the entire application. You just run one script and you're done. So in this case, I'm just leveraging this patch model script. Also in the case of generating a Rails scaffold application. And so the steps are, first make sure you've got the right gems in, then build scaffold for all your models, throw in an Atra accessible on every model just so that patch models will work properly. And then I patch in all of my relationships with patch models. And finally, we do the DB migrate to actually run all the migrations that got generated during the Rails G scaffold step. All right. Okay, so I have done this several times already. This is the third time I've done it. I need to make sure, of course, it runs smoothly if I'm going to get it done in 5 minutes, building it 2 different ways. Okay, CD S3. We just, by the way, the command I just ran was Rails new S3, generating a new Rails project. So one of the best uses of Hobo, in my mind, is when somebody has an idea for a new product and they just want to see how it would work. You can generate a new Rails project for that in a matter of minutes and then let them try it out, and it gives them an idea of whether they've actually figured out their relationships properly for the data model. So we're going to go into S3 here and build with Rails G scaffold. Now I just showed everybody what was in that script. There's nothing particularly magic about it. About me running it. Okay. Now we should have an application because it did actually run the migration. So all we have to do is Rails S. That's not part of the application, that's from before. Here we are. Woohoo! And one of the nice things that you get from Rails New is this welcome page. And something that you don't get from Rails G scaffold is any way to traverse all the models that you just created. So if we want to look at users and postings, so let's have a look at users. We actually have to type the routes in ourselves. You don't get any handy links to all this stuff pre-made for us. So let's try users. Okay, so we got a new user link, that's nice. Go ahead and do that. And this is the kind of user interface that we get out of Rails GScout. You may notice that I can now just create a user. And as soon as I create it, I mean, it's not asking me to register, provide a password, or anything like that. And actually, it's not even asking, it just wants this encrypted password, right? Which I can't actually type, as you know. But I'm gonna go and just fill this in. Fortunately, it's already got everything stored in the browser. And create that user. Yay, we got that. All right, so then we're gonna go back and create one more user, and then one more. Oh, wait a minute. Did it not create that user? Wait a minute. I just remembered, because I have to go through and tell it that all the models are, so I actually have it in the notes here if I bother to look at my notes. I just have to tell all the models that those attributes are accessible, or well, let me save it. But at any rate, you've seen generally what the user interface looks like. One other thing I'm going to show you that's particularly horrible is postings. We need a new posting. It has relationships to other things. It's not even showing relationships. Okay. So if instead we decide to generate this with Hobo, do that, go back here, stop, one. Okay. So the Hobo new command is very similar to the Rails new command. It's Hobo new project name, and then we're going to give it this argument of dash dash setup that's going to throw in lots of extra gems for us that are just generally useful. Almost done. Okay, so now this has built a basic Hobo app. And I haven't done anything at all yet. I just built a basic Hobo app. I did not create any models or anything like that. How can I be doing this? Oh, I changed it to the wrong directory. It's all right. Okay. So the bare bones app already has a way to register, and because I'm the very first person to register, it's automatically making me into the administrator. So as soon as I register, I'm the administrator of the site. Now you can turn off that behavior if you want to, but it's a really handy way of just bootstrapping stuff and getting it going quickly. You can usually count on it the first time you fire up an application that the person who is firing up, the only person who knows about it, it's okay if they're the admin. And, okay, so back to here. And then it's actually going to do the password confirmation, make sure that I typed it the same way both times, and now I'm in. And you can look at the user's route, except for you can't, which I will show why in just a minute. But what I can do is look at /user/1. Users 1. Oh, sorry. Okay. I accidentally did a J. I'm going to crank up my. Oh, it only affects the window that's loading. Okay. So, we can look at users 1 and edit the user. The next thing I can do is create a new user. So, let's try. Oh, I see it's okay, the log out. Got it. I don't know if you guys noticed, but since it's doing the bootstrap, the Rails bootstrap, it adapts very nicely to cranking up the font size, etc., and having stuff disappear gracefully. Okay. So I'm going to sign up a second user, try random. And now that I'm guy random, you may recall that the first user was an admin, guy random is not. So if I try to look at /users/1, it shows Steve Madera, but there's no edit button. And since I'm running in dev mode, Hobo has provided this incredibly handy user switcher widget at the top. I'm currently logged in as guy@random.org. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I can switch to being logged in as Steve Madera, the admin. And as soon as I'm logged in as Steve Madera, the admin, I can edit this user. If I then go and look at user 2, switch to being guy@random.org, I've still got an edit user button here because I can edit my own user record. All that's just built into Hobo right from the get-go. All right. But where it really shines is when we add all the other models, so I'm going to do that now. This script that builds the website with Hobo, this is just a bash script. So hopefully this will be clear to you guys. Okay. The first thing that it does is it invites me to actually edit the user model because I was too lazy to write the code modification stuff. It's just going to launch an editor and invite me to add those things to my user model. You may recall Hobo created the user model. For the rest of the models, it runs this command called hobo g resource. That's a lot like Rails g scaffold. And you specify in a hobo g resource command here. Is my voice coming through clearly, by the way, or do I need to use that? Okay. You specified a hobo g resource command, the field names and types, just like you would with Rails g scaffold, right? And but here's one of the cool things in Hobo. You can generate a migration. After you make any new resource, you generate a migration. It will bring the database in sync with the set of resources that you've got. And the -M option on Hobo G migration will actually run the migration after generating it for you. So what this script is doing right here is repeatedly creating a resource, generating a migration, and running it. Create a resource, generate a migration, and run it. In this case, we create a resource, then we patch it by adding an association. User has many postings. And then we're also going to patch it with category has many postings. And then when we do the Hobo G migration, it's going to notice all the different relationships that were created and create one big migration for all the changes to the database. So let's go ahead. And this script basically consists of doing that repeatedly. And as you can see from the comment at the top, if you can see from this comment at the top, this script was actually auto-generating itself. So all that there will generate our entire application. Let's run that. Oh, wait, there's another step. I forgot. There are some gems that I like to use in my Hobo applications. So just look at what those are. Okay. This is all pretty standard stuff that I'm sure most of you guys use, RSpec and Factory Girl in your test and development environments. And I like to add this early on in my Hobo projects because when I do a Hobo G migration, it'll actually create factories for me. And not entirely, they're stubbed out, but at least it reminds me to go fill them out. And then I always like to use active model serializers because it makes it really quick to generate APIs in JSON. And in this particular case, I'm going to demonstrate the special field type called Markdown. So I'm including the RDiscount gem so we can do Markdown. And then these 3 gems are things that I wrote myself in the last couple of months because I just felt like they were, well, Hobo Carrier Wave makes it super easy to add attachments. And the name one or new dialog is a really cool user interface element. It's just a slight tweak on their previously existing select one or new dialog. What name one or new dialog does is you use it as an input type in any form, and it does an autocomplete name one. So you start typing in the field and it'll call back to your controller to get the completion list, fill it in Ajax style. If you can't find what you're looking for, there's a create button that you press. It pops up a dialog where you can create something new, and then you'll be able to pull it up in the autocomplete list immediately thereafter. Okay, so I'm going to concatenate those onto my gem file, and we'll install. So everything I've done so far is, it's all boilerplate stuff. You would do it on every project, and you can just have this set of standard gems that you like to add to your projects, and you just concatenate it. This next part is all done by running that build app script. Okay. And doggone it. That's not what I wanted to do. just do that section over real quick without talking about it. Okay, because I accidentally started the Rails G scaffold stuff, and I just didn't want to make a mess of my project. But now you can see how fast it goes if you don't stand around explaining to people what you're doing. Okay, so generated a new Hobo app, add to our gems, bumper install. And we run our build script, build the app, build with Hobo. Okay. And this tells me I just want to edit these 2 lines into my user model. So this right here we're viewing in the lower pane, the user model as Hobo originally generated when we first did the Hobo new. And this is one of those cool extensions where you get to specify what the fields are in the model. So it comes out of the box with a name, email address, and a flag saying whether you're an administrator or not. And I'm just going to add a phone number and a couple of Boolean flags for whether it's okay to contact you by phone and text. And that is it for actual interaction with this build script. Here on, it's just going to finish generating the resources and then running the migrations. Okay. Okay. One other thing that I'm going to do is, in order to enable display of attached images, I'm just going to make a little bit of an enhancement to our tag library, which I'll show you in a second. Almost done. Okay, so. Okay. Catch. All right. So these lines here go into a dry-mel file, and it makes it pick up all of the definitions in the name one or new dialog gem and in the Hobo carrier wave gem. And then it adds multi-part into the forms for posting and photo. And that'll allow us to do, this amount of augmenting to our application.dry.ml file is what's going to allow us to do attachments right out of the box. Okay, so. Okay, so just appended it on there, and now we Rails S. Okay. Now you may notice something a little bit different about this app than the way it was before. We have links to each of our models up here. Actually, in this case, it's controllers, is what they really are. We have links to each of our controllers across the top, automatically generated. We've got search, which I may have mentioned before. I'm going to go ahead and log in as the first user and become the admin. And then I'm going to go ahead and log out and sign up second user. And just to make things a little bit more interesting, I'm going to go ahead and create a third user to just net. Log out and sign up, and this guy is going to do okay. All right. We can immediately go into categories and create a category. Oh, sorry, I'm logged in as dude. I'm not an admin. I can't do jack. So let me become Steve, and I can create a new category. All right, so weapons of mass destruction. This is going to be a really fun site. It's sort of like Silk Road, but worse. And go back, create another new one. Body parts. And stolen documents. All right. So we have our 3 categories, and then we're going to create some properties real quick, such as illegal, and stolen. Contaminated. All right. Finally, having created all that, we're going to go to postings and create a new posting. Now, immediately, when I can pick categories off of this stuff, I have not written any freaking code. All I did was put a database schema in here. And the schema was written as a JSON file. I didn't even have to write any freaking SQL. Okay, so let's see, kidney, and freshly harvested, and it's $20,000. Okay, and it's going to go to body parts, and you'll notice I get to assign what user owns it. So we're missing a little bit of business logic here, which we'll get to in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to say that guy random created that posting. Okay. And now if we look at our postings, it actually displays in a nice table. And we can upload a photo if we want to. Did you guys notice this? I'm uploading a photo here. I didn't do jack, okay? All I did was I defined that the data type of the image column in photo is of type carrier wave image. And it is ready for me to upload images. Oh God, I hope this works. It's probably some goofy little detail I've overlooked, but anyway, I'll go ahead and grab that image, and we're going to assign that to the kidney posting. Okay, worked. Okay. Hopefully the kidney is not actually on this bit here. All right. So we go back to our postings here, and we look at this posting. It's not showing up. So there is just a little bit more work to do, but it's not a lot. And I'm going to show you how we do that. Take just a second. First, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, 5 minutes, by the way. Oh, running out of time. Jeez. Okay, good. And I don't have to get too far into stuff that's hard. Okay, get that base build. Okay. So I just did a git commit, so we'll be able to see easily exactly what I'm changing when I do this next part. So we're going to edit the model for posting. And this is what a model looks like in Hobo, and it is awesome as far as I'm concerned. We specify the fields here at the top, all the relationships, what's accessible. By merely saying something is accessible, that's what makes it show up in a form to be edited. Okay? And then we define our permissions rules. These are auto-generated permissions rules that as soon as you do a Hobo G resource, you get all this stuff for permissions rules. And it basically says only administrators can do anything. But in Hobo Turbo, I have this thing called user owned, which I'm going to real quick make like 4 edits, and it's going to add all this functionality. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is make sure that the photos show up when we view it. So we say children photos, sorry. Okay, and what that means is this is giving a view hint that when we show this record, we want to show the photos with it, a collection of whatever photos are attached. We can also throw on, if we want to, the properties. It will show both photos and properties when we do a view of the posting. Then the next thing that we want to do is we want to make, let's see, we want to be able to change the properties, accessible, true. We want to be able to change the properties in the input form, and so adding that accessible true gives a hint to the Hobo form builder that you want it to go ahead and put an editor in there for that. So having done that, let's start up a new window, and I'm just going to start my server in a different window. It says okay. See. Okay. Okay. I've made my changes to the model. It's views adapt just like in any other Rails app. I didn't actually have to stop my server. And reloading this, we now see that it's showing photos, photo 1, which this is unfortunate that it's not actually showing the image, but I'll get to that in just a second. And if we edit our kidney posting, check this out, we can now specify the properties because I made them accessible. You guys see that? Okay. And we can see it's both illegal and stolen. And There are more changes that can be made very easily simply by putting properties onto these things. Your user interface becomes more and more capable. And I'm going to sort of jump right over a couple of other things and just show how to customize, let's see, for properties. We're going to change properties. Instead of generating it this way, which you select something and then you have those remove buttons, we're going to assume that the set of properties is going to be created by an administrator and stay pretty static, so that an appropriate input model is what they call check many, where it shows all the different properties and you just check the various check boxes, and we can change. And so to change that, all we have to do is add this. This much new code is going to get us check many. So what we've told it is, when a form wants to do a select many on something of class property, instead do this. Or rather, yeah, in that case do. And then the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to make it so that when it prints a list of properties, instead of putting them inside of big, complicated divs, we're just going to put the name of the property. So that much will do that. Do the pen 2 and reload this form.
You have to reload the server and make changes to drive them off.
No, you don't typically. And there is, what did I miss here? Say it. Oh, doggone it. I'm sorry. It's actually not that big of a deal. It's just that it's on Edge Hobo. The capability to subclass select many is on Edge Hobo, and so I just have to change the gem from to 11 to anyway.
Unfortunately, we're running
Out of time. Anyway, I would be happy to, if anybody else is interested in finding out more about it, contact me. I'm at steve@stevemadeira.com, and I'll send in. I'm going to make a tutorial out of the stuff that I did today, and I'll be sending. I guess. Do we send any kind of follow-up email to the announcements list or anything like that?
Usually we'll tweet out
Okay.
links to slides and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So just let us know and
Okay.
we'll get out there. And you're going to be Rails after this too?
Oh yeah, definitely going to be there. Hopefully, I've convinced some people it's worth looking into at this point. So, you guys have a great evening.
Thank you very much. Sure. I'll see you at the bar. All right. Thanks to our speakers, and thanks to Owen Local, who is about to treat us to some awesome alcohol over at BD Riley's. So for those of you who don't know where it is, it's right down 6th Street out of 10 directions. So walk down Brazos till you get to 6th, and then take a left, and it'll be like the first bar on the left. Thanks everybody for coming, and I'll see you guys down there.